I learned so much just now. But our next speaker is Jaia Wingard. Jaia is a current freshman at Columbia and rowed for Connecticut Boat Club and Springside Chestnut Hill Academy in high school. She locked a second-place finish at the 2019 USRowing National Championships in the U19-8 and earned an invite to the 2020 US Junior Women's U19 National Team Selection Camp. These only scratch the surface of Jaia's accomplishments, and she spoke at the USRowing virtual graduation ceremony as a graduate guest speaker in 2020 and received recruiting attention from Ivy League programs such as Columbia, Penn, Harvard, Brown, and Yale. But she ultimately decided on Columbia because of the expansive range of academic, athletic, social, and professional opportunities, and she planned to major in neuroscience and behavior. So go ahead, Jaia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jaia. Like Juliana said, I'm a freshman at Columbia right now. So obviously I don't have a lot of experience with rowing in college, not even on campus yet. But I can speak on my transition from high school to college and what that was like. So I guess I would say that I started kind of hesitant to get going and rowing and give it a try. I was a freshman and in high school, and I was very much into volleyball. That was my thing. I played for a really long time, and I was planning on playing in college. And the coach of my high school team came up to me and was like, "Oh yeah, you really should row. You should really try this. You're really tall. This would be really good for you." And I think that I originally was like, "Oh, maybe not. I'm really good at volleyball. This is my thing. I'm really comfortable with this." But then eventually I was like, okay, fine, I'll try it. So I did. And then I was battling doing both club volleyball and high school rowing at the same time, which was really hard for me, obviously, because I have to handle school and two sports. Then going into my sophomore year, my family was moving. And so I had to look for new clubs for volleyball. And so in that process, I was trying to decide if I was going to continue rowing or not. And one of my family friends suggested to go to the Connecticut Boat Club because his daughter rowed there and she had a great experience and she's rowing in college now. And he thought, oh, that would be a great experience for you. So I gave it a try, and it was actually in Connecticut and I was living in New York City. So the commute was really far. And so I kind of went with the mentality of like, oh, this is too much. Like, I'll just go back to playing volleyball. It'll be fine. Like, it was great to give rowing a try. And when I went, it was definitely like a long commute. So I was like, okay, this is hard, but I absolutely loved the environment that was there. It was very empowering. It was an all-girls club, and they were very successful. And so I think that just being in an environment where there are so many awesome women who work really hard together and push each other was really cool. And all the girls on the team were really inviting. They really were excited for me to be there and kind of welcomed me with open arms. And so I decided to do the fall season and then decide after that if I wanted to continue or not. I had to leave school early. I had to make a really big commitment to getting there and spend a lot of time on the train or commuting. And so because I had just moved, I didn't have a lot of friends, trying to kind of establish myself in a new home, it was really challenging. But one thing that was really stable and comfortable in my life was being at practice and being with my teammates. So I would say that's probably one of the biggest benefits I think the sport has given me, is that I definitely have my best friends from the sport of rowing. And I think that's probably a matter of the shared experiences of pain. Some of those really gruesome times kind of bring people together. Everyone has the same priorities. So, I feel like, especially in college, you want to do well in your sport, but you also want to do well in school. And I think that having those similarities kind of brings people together as well. So yeah, I also want to speak on the summertime things I would do in terms of rowing. So when I was going into senior year of high school, my coach thought that I should try to do a US rowing camp. And I had older girls on the team who had done it before, who I could look up to and ask like what their experience was like. And a few of them had raced for the national team in overseas in the U19 World Championships. And so what you do is you go through a camp where you spend the whole summer rowing. And it's pretty intense. And so at first I was like, maybe that's not for me. Like I row all year round. It's pretty intense. So my summertime is my time to relax. But I decided to give it a try, and I went to the ID camp. I 2K'd, and then they sent out invitations a couple months later. I was surprised to get invited to the high performance camp, and still had to make the decision about whether or not I was going to go. Everyone convinced me to go, and so I ended up going. And I think that one of the biggest things that I took away from that, or one of the biggest things that it showed me, was how cool it was to row with people from around the country and meet other people who were just as excited about the sport from different places. And it got me really excited about college rowing, because those would be girls that I would be talking to and rowing against and being teammates with in the future. I actually met the girl that was supposed to be my freshman roommate at that camp. So I saw one of the earlier questions that were submitted was, who was your first friend on campus? And I met my first friend before college even started, actually at a rowing camp. So that's pretty fun. And yeah, it was very intense, but I think that I genuinely made some of my best friends there. And so that's something that I really value about rowing. Additionally, I think I really like that it keeps me in a very strict routine, which is really awesome for me. It really helps my productivity, and it keeps me on top of my nutrition in terms of like food and sleep. I also absolutely love kind of the work hard, play hard mentality, especially just it's so satisfying to work really hard and then be able to have your fun and peace knowing that you've been grinding. So yeah, I mean, in terms of Columbia, I think I chose Columbia because of all of the schools that I was looking at, I think the environment of New York City was the place where I wanted to be. And then also the team was a setting where you can kind of choose what kind of role you want rowing to have in your life. At Columbia, they have like a pretty big gap of like what kinds of how involved the people on the team are. So there's definitely a group that is more serious about doing well in the sport of rowing, and then there's also a group that kind of just likes to have the sport in their life and have it be something that they're committed to, but they kind of choose how much time and effort they want to put into it. And I think after having a pretty intense high school situation with rowing, I was excited to make that choice and see like what I was feeling like in college. So yeah, I think that's the main spiel on my experience.
Thank you so much. So just a few questions. What has it been like starting your freshman year during COVID, and what has made was it hard to make friends? I guess not. You made your friends, but harder to make connections and stuff with your new teammates.
I think that starting college on Zoom is definitely difficult. I personally struggle with focusing online as it is, and then let alone like making new friends is definitely something that's really challenging to like make connections when you're not personally with somebody. But that is honestly one of the biggest reasons I'm so grateful to be on a team, is because I kind of have a built-in like friend group already and plenty of friends already, and there's a really great support system of older upperclassmen who give me lots of advice on plenty of different things that have to do with Columbia. So that has been really awesome for me, especially in this circumstance. I can just really text anyone on the team. I've been able to like meet up with other girls on the rowing team too, and we've been able to do workouts together and things like that. But yeah, it's definitely challenging, but I think that the second we get to go back to normal life, all the experiences will be a little bit more heightened and more fun.
Yeah, I've also had the same experience, just like you were saying, having the support system already built in and friends already built in, and people are like, oh, you guys making friends? And it's like, well, I already had some. So it's definitely cool to have the team to back you up, especially during, you're saying like now during COVID. So yeah. Are you the only person of color on your team?
I'm not. And that is something that I paid very close attention to when I was on my official visits. I think, especially, I had a college counselor in high school, and when she was helping me look for schools, what she would do is she would look at like the rosters of the programs and look at them. And I remember she reported to me, she was like, I was trying to look for a team that I think you would fit in with, and it was hard for me to find teams that had Black people on them. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of just how it goes. And I think there has to be a balance between how comfortable you can be in a space where you're different and how much you let that affect you. I think I personally have had a very good experience being different in all of my in my environments. So I haven't had like a moment where I felt unwelcomed. So I guess I'm very privileged in that sense. But I think that looking at the different schools that I would go to, I'd pay attention to how the girls of color were being treated and how they felt and if they felt included or not. There is another Black girl in my recruiting class at Columbia, and there's an older girl who is African American on the team too. And then we have a lot of different races other than white on the team. So that's pretty fun. And then I also think that being in the city of New York is pretty great to be surrounded by a wealth of diversity.
Yeah, I think I love that your counselor did that for you, because if I have any advice for anybody in the audience, it would be to look at how many people of color are on the team. That's something that I didn't do, and I think if I had to change what I did, I would do that, because it honestly does make the difference, and even having one person there would make the difference. So thank you, Jaia, and thank you to your counselor for doing that for you, because that was something I did not think about and I should have thought about, but we're here today. So how did your coaches handle the unrest during the summer and protests, and did they address it or no?
Yeah, we had some Zoom calls to talk about it. They were like kind of just like spaces for the coaches to address it and talk about how we as a team wanted to respond. It was kind of more like I appreciated how it was less of them talking at us and more of the girls on the team kind of working to agree on how they wanted to move forward. But I think in terms of bettering the involvement of African American people and people of color in the sport of rowing, I think we're trying to work proactively. And so as a school in New York, we feel like we have the opportunity to encourage young athletes in New York City to get involved in rowing early on and then want to join and row in college. So to Columbia specifically, we have been building a relationship with Row New York, which is a program in New York City. And we did an ergothon this past summer, all 3 teams, like the men's, heavyweight, lightweight, and then the women's team. We all did an ergothon to raise money for that program. And we also had plans to continue that relationship and doing different kinds of interactive events, like we would go and coach at the boathouse and stuff like that and talk about experiences with them, just to kind of encourage them to row and get more people involved. So yeah, that's something that we've been doing. Obviously, COVID has slowed that down because it's not really safe to do that right now, but I'm excited to participate in that in the future.
Oh, that's great to hear that Columbia was definitely taking a step. On the opposite end of that experience, I think my advice is to not be afraid to push your coaches if they're not saying enough. I think I've had the opposite experience where they didn't say enough and I had to push them to say something. So any young athletes, please don't be afraid to push your coaches to say more than they are, do more than they are doing, because that's really important. So I'm really happy to hear that Columbia is actually, taking that step forward, especially with Row New York. So a question that was given in the chat is, what is something that you would change or do differently, or advice to your younger self?
Sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sorry. Like, what is something that you would have done differently or change, or advice to your younger self?
I would say just not to get worried about things being challenging, and kind of just like channel the personality of keep your head down and keep going. I'm looking back on some of the really hard times that I had with workouts, commutes, being tired, not fitting in with certain circumstances. And I look back on them and I'm like, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal. It was really fun, and look where I am now. But in the moment, it's really challenging. And I feel like there's some times when it's so easy to just think, oh, what if I just didn't do this? What if I gave up right now? And I really owe a lot to the sport for helping me overcome that and kind of building a character in order to not let that get in my way. But I think that I would just tell myself, don't get worried. It's going to be all right. You're going to get through this. Yeah. And that goes as simple as just in the middle of a workout to long periods of time or big decisions.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So I like to open